Tonight's story begins with a complaint. Not a strange complaint. Not at first. Hotels receive complaints every day. The water is too cold. The bed is uncomfortable. The people next door won't stop arguing. But over the 6 years I worked the night shift at the Briarwood Hotel, one room received the same complaint over and over again. Always after midnight. Always. was found. No signs of struggle. No evidence that he had left. No evidence that he had ever existed outside of that room. That should have been the end of it, but it wasn't. Because after Daniel disappeared, I became obsessed. I started reviewing old guest records, reading maintenance reports, digging through filing cabinets. I wanted an explanation. I needed one. That's when things started to get strange. The first odd thing was that nobody seemed to remember the complaints. Not management, not former employees, not even security. One night, I asked my manager about room 307. She frowned. What about it? The complaints, I asked. She said, what complaints? I laughed, because obviously she was joking. But she wasn't. I reminded her about the woman, the businessman, the truck driver, Daniel Mercer, all the guests who had reported seeing someone in the mirror. She stared at me for several seconds, then said, I don't know what you're talking about. For some reason, that seemed to bother me more than the mirror ever had. So I went looking for proof. Surely there were incident reports, guest records, something. But every file I checked came back empty. No complaints, no reports, nothing. Then I searched for Daniel Mercer. No reservation, no check-in record, no payment history, nothing. It was as if he had never stayed there at all. I should have stopped. Any sane person would have stopped. Instead, I kept digging. A few weeks later, I found a stack of old complaint forms tucked inside a filing cabinet. The forms I'd been looking for. Proof. Finally. I nearly cried from relief. The woman from years ago, the businessman, the truck driver, Daniel. They were all there. Every complaint, every statement, every signature. I took the stack home. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, reading through them, one by one, and that's when I noticed something. Every form had been written in the same handwriting. Not similar handwriting, the same handwriting. Mine. I checked again, and again, and again. Every complaint, every witness statement, every note. Mine. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I brought the forms to work. I needed someone else to see them. Someone else to explain what I was missing. Instead, my manager looked at the papers and asked, why did you write all of this? I didn't have an answer, because I didn't remember writing them. But also, I didn't remember receiving them. 2 months later, management replaced the mirror in room 307. Brand new frame, brand new glass. Exactly what I've been asking for. For a while, I thought that was the end. Then one night, the phone rang. 2:13 a.m. Exactly. The phone call came from room 307. My stomach dropped. I answered. Silence. Then a voice. Soft. Barely above a whisper. There's somebody in the mirror. I quit the next day. I told myself it was because of the stress, lack of sleep, too many night shifts. Maybe that's true. Maybe there was never anything wrong with the mirror. Maybe there was never any guests. Maybe there was never any complaints. That's what everyone else seems to believe. But every now and then, usually late at night, I find myself thinking about room 307 and about the floor plan extensions. Just 306. There has never been a room 307. I stared at those blueprints for nearly an hour, trying to convince myself there had been a mistake. Because if there wasn't, then I don't know who was calling me. I don't know who was checking into that room. And I don't know who kept leaving complaints on my desk.